Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. We're fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey for the last several years. So thank you, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for the contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for the intro you just heard. He is an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and darkwave electronic music, which can be found on all of your music streaming platforms. Also, thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind our logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror genre, Halloween genre, but does phenomenal commission pieces of all types. So tonight, I'm really thrilled to have my dear friends, Preston Dennett and Dolly Safran, back on the show. And it's spooky month. It's Halloween. It's everything high strangeness. It's just the month where, you know, everything combines. And tonight will be an example of that because we're going to be talking about a chapter out of Preston's books, Not From Around Here. And it's going to be stories of UFOs and ET graveyard encounters. I did not think this was a thing. I really did not. So when Preston, the last time he was on, said, yeah, that's a thing. It's like, I got to find out about this. This is just extraordinary. So without further ado, and we have so many people in chat tonight, and I appreciate all of you. I will try to put up comments as we can and questions, that sort of thing, and get to as many as possible. So until then, sit back, enjoy the show, and let's welcome Preston Dennett and Dolly Safran. Hello.
Hello.
How are you guys?
Pretty good. Getting ready for spooky time. It's been spooky around here for the last couple days.
Uh-oh. Spooky.
Better get my microphone ready. I forgot.
Uh-oh. Yep. Spooky. Reverb.
I'm wearing my black shirt in honor of Spooky Month.
Ooh, thank you. I too. And Dolly as well. Black shirts. I love it. Oh my God. Everybody chiming in. Thank you all so much. I know the ones in my chat room, so I'll just put you up. And of course, well, thank you, Amelia. She is. She does listen. She is out there. Thank you for the repost. Also, thank you, Mark, for the repost as well. And Janie, where are you? God, see, you have to understand, we have Preston's people on board tonight too, so I'm going to lose some of you guys for sure. So welcome to everyone. Hello. And I love you too, Janie. Thank you. Thank you. And if I'm missing anyone, God, just please get back in there so I can just acknowledge you all. Hello, Kevin. Oh my gosh. So of course you guys know the drill, right? Feel free to just flag any comments, flag hi Heidi, flag any questions, whatever. I'm very, very laid back over here. So go crazy. Okay.
Yes.
So I have to say, ET and UFO encounters in the graveyard, in the cemeteries. That's a thing.
Yep,
Yes.
It sure is. I had no idea, honestly. It kind of really struck me hard when I read this one account in a book about West Virginia UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of remembered hearing a case from Raymond Fowler I thought, wait a second, I think J. Allen Hynek has a case. And all the dots started going off, and I'm like, Jim and Cora Lorenzen have a case. I know Scott Corrales has a case. I've got about 24 cases that I know of.
Wow.
I'm still finding ones with a weird connection, not only to graveyards, but to, the life after death and death in general.
Well,
or weird connections that are I don't fully understand.
well, is it sort of like those instances where you hear about some locations, especially, um, small towns, maybe some indigenous cemeteries, where all the bodies disappear. Like, even though they've been there for a long time. I was like, yeah, that's a thing. I was like, what?
Yeah, that's right. We talked about that once on a prior show with the Alaskan village.
Yeah.
Or
Well, there
the
was
Arctic or somewhere.
there was one in northern Canada, and they only chose like I think 2 or 3. But Wayne and I were talking about this like a few days ago, and he goes, "No, I read something where literally the entire cemetery got emptied out, and they were just really old graves." I'm like, well, who would want that? Well, okay, some of us maybe, but I mean, like as far as we like those who like the macabre and things of that sort. But a lot of these were just gone. Taken out, holes in the ground. That's it. Everything gone. You have 100 people. Where do they go?
That's an interesting thing to think about. Yeah. I wonder. Okay, I wonder really hard whether or not that. I know that it's got to be some human, because I know of a graveyard out where I lived in Pine Mountain that emptied out like that, just holes left. And after digging, the authorities found out that the land was under refute by 2 different parties, and one of them really wanted the land, and they didn't want because the graveyard had been there for like 100 years. It's old Georgia graveyard that they was untouchable, and then suddenly it's all gone. And there's a huge investigation, and the people who wanted the land got in trouble for it because they're the ones that moved them. And
that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I know. It's insane.
Oh, here it is, right here. Wayne says there was a village in Serbia, he believes, that had graves opened up and the bones removed, with the exception of 2 new bodies that were left undisturbed.
Now the question is, were UFOs seen over that area by the people at that time?
Yeah,
no, it's definitely a thing. When I found out it was a thing, I decided to write an article for Fate magazine. Who I was doing really well with. I mean, they were publishing pretty much everything I wrote at this point, which was a huge step up because it took me years to get in that magazine.
Wow.
They just kept rejecting my stuff. But finally I got in, I got my foot in the door, and they were accepting all my stuff. I thought, this is going to be such a good article. This is going to get the cover. I know. They rejected it.
Sacrilege. How dare they reject you?
How dare you? Don't you know who I am? No. But I found out why, and I had to laugh so hard because Scott Corrales, another UFO researcher, had read the same book I did about West Virginia UFOs, found the case, made the connection, and wrote an article called UFOs Over Cemeteries. So I got my article published in the MUFON Journal, and it did get the cover, so I'm okay.
Right. Okay, good.
But it was really fascinating to see that he made the same connection I did around the same time. He found some cases I didn't find. I found some cases he didn't find. But it's absolutely 100%, hands down, I can prove it, a thing.
Wow.
Well, I have a question for you. I've been waiting a week to ask this on air to Preston personally, okay?
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I know a little bit about this from the ET side of it, okay? But I'm not talking about it yet. Has anybody done like research on the actual people who were buried and what their lives were and gone into them specifically and individually? I mean, have y'all tried to figure that out in your research?
Yeah, well, I've speculated because I'm guessing they're contactees, but I have no idea because no research has been done on that.
Okay.
But I think that's
I have to ask, Preston, most people in the cemeteries are, 6 feet under. So what are people doing in a cemetery to have an experience? I have to be that guy and throw it out there because You know, I mean, I get it. Some people like you know, they like to go for the Victorians are just crazy about it. But I mean, to have like so many experiences, it's sort of like, you know,
Right. Well, it's somewhat the witnesses are often there by happenstance. You know, they perhaps live next to one, or they're
got
driving
it.
by one,
Okay.
or because people do stake out cemeteries for ghostly activity.
Yeah, all the time.
They do. Yeah.
That's absolutely a thing. But and there's a couple of cases where people were doing that and did have a UFO encounter instead.
Yeah.
But by
Yeah.
and large, no, it's absolutely kind of coincidental, I
Yeah.
guess would be the best way of putting it. But
You know, so many ghost sightings, you can easily see the research value in these encounters. You know, Wayne says that would definitely be an interesting path to look into. If people were buried and were actually contactees, it would be a heck of a coincidence.
I
Yeah.
honestly think that's what's going on. Or perhaps I don't know. I don't know. I can only
Well,
speculate. I've
going
got all
back,
these reasons why I think they might be doing it.
yeah.
Um,
If you go back in the day, small towns, for instance, especially out in Serbia, I mean, you're looking small place up, very, very isolated, and it wouldn't be unheard of that meant like an entire village would have contact, let's say, much like the indigenous people. You know, they were all very
sure.
accustomed to having contact with other beings and such. But what makes it so interesting that they come back unless, okay, I'm just going to throw this out there, unless, you know, was there some kind of like, were they hybrids and they're just
Yes.
trying to get their people out of there?
See, that's what I know about it.
Right there, Dolly, right there.
There you go.
I
Right.
asked Dolly about this where, we're writing symmetry too.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this. I'm like, Dolly, we'll get to that case, but can I just tell you a few of the cases
go crazy.
I found?
It's the stage is yours, my friend. Go crazy.
All right. Here's a kid who is a witness to one of these really interesting cases. This is one of the first I found. His name is Ricky Banyard. This one's from Alberta, Canada. These are, of course, taking place all over the world. This was on May 7, 1967. He's 14 years old. And he noticed strange beams of light coming down from an object in the sky and ran to the home of his friend, Glenn Coate. And they watched this, they could see this object, and which I actually do have a drawing that they put together. So there it is. This is basically what they drew, what they said they saw. So they watched this for a long time until it got real late. It was 2 a.m. and Glenn goes to bed, but Ricky decides he's going to stay up. This is Ricky Banyard. And he follows this beam of light to the ground and realizes it's shining directly on the Mount Pleasant Cemetery, which is right across the street, and shining right, making a kind of rectangular, beam on the ground. And he says that he tried to get closer, but he went outside and was looking at this, and as soon as he stepped up from the trees to go towards this, the beam of light retracted. There was a loud banging noise, and it powered up, making a humming noise, and took off. Now here's the really interesting part, which this is what really fascinates me, because on the report in this case, quote, an inspection of the cemetery yielded several unexplained rectangular black streaks on the sand and gravel paths leading among the graves. Rocks and pebbles were charred. None of the grassy area or trees appeared to have been harmed, but the cemetery foreman, Joseph LaForge, says that these marks were not there. So he says, I don't know what they are. They're pretty unusual. So
interesting.
This is not a case of just simple sightings. That's a close encounter of the second kind.
So over the graves or on the path in between the graves?
It was on the pathways.
Okay.
Among the graves.
Right.
So I'm not sure exactly what that means, but it's interesting because it's not just a simple sighting. And some of these are not simple sightings. The graves are being, some of them actually do affect the graves, as we'll see when we get to some of these cases.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're landing. There's a few cases with humanoids being seen. So this is not just
peculiarity, isn't it? Like, the path between the graves, how they have rows of graves and then you have the paths that go in between them. So, and a lot of times like there's 6 feet between them. Like it's a substantial amount of space. So that's very interesting. All right.
Yeah. So that's kind of a typical case.
Yeah.
Because most of them are, these are fairly low level objects. It's not someone sitting in the graveyard watching something fly by, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are cases where the graves, or the grave site, I should say, the cemetery, is being specifically targeted. I discarded any case where, like, I'm walking by a graveyard and a UFO flies by.
Right.
There's no
doesn't
connection.
count. Yeah. Yeah.
No, these are cases where it's clear that the graveyard is of interest to the UFO. And here is another really interesting one. This one occurred in Illinois, June 8th, 2011. A man was in his home when his dog starts acting up. I always love that because these are animal reaction cases.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is a form of evidence. She said she was overly restless and barking and just kept barking towards the south. So he takes the dog outside. The dog goes crazy, starts running around in circles. And this is when he looks up and sees this object, glowing white. It has colored lights on it. And it's hovering. He says it was hovering just above the graveyard at the end of our street. Now, this was interesting because only a few weeks earlier, he had seen this same object hovering over the same area, but really didn't think anything of it. So he runs inside.
Did a drive-by. Yeah.
Well, it's significant because this is not just a singular event. Why is it coming back over and over again? There's something of interest to the UFO.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like it's the graveyard. So he runs inside, gets a camera and another witness, and stands there and watches this thing for just a few minutes. Apparently did not get a good photograph of it.
Mm-hmm.
But watched this thing take off to the southeast at a very slow rate. It looked like it was pretty high up there. And his dog was still completely freaking out. So I ended up having to take the dog indoors.
Yeah. Animals are they're so intuitive. So that to me, like you say, that's a bit of a dead giveaway right there for something outside the norm.
Yeah. And if there were just 1 or 2 cases of this kind, I'd be like, okay, whatever. But these are what I would call a UFO attractor. There's certain things that attract UFOs.
Yes. Yes.
And we know a lot of what they are. Anything technological. I've got 20 cases, 30 of UFOs over prisons.
Yeah. See, that's another one. Like what for?
Which we could do a whole show on.
We shall. We can definitely do that. That's crazy.
Over nuclear power plants, over Air Force bases, over coal mines, over factories.
Coal mines.
Of course, schoolyards and drive-in theaters. I wrote a whole book on those, but these are all various UFO attractors.
The jail one really fascinates me because it's a curiosity. I mean, I imagine you have your share of contactees there, but it's a bit of a peculiar place to hang out. I mean, not that the cemetery isn't any more peculiar, but so very, very fascinating.
Yeah. Well, Dolly, you had a case where you took a guy out of prison, right?
Yep, we did. He was on death row. He was about to be executed. He was a lifetime contactee, and they wanted to, brief him before he left and help him understand what he was going through. And they're very interesting ideas that people have, but basically ET cares about you whether you commit a crime or not. Okay, if you're their contactee, you're their contactee, and the state of your consciousness is real important to them. And you got this person who's done some really stupid stuff, and they're about to be executed for it, and ET still cares about that, the consciousness of who you are. Okay, this is a very you would consider this really high spiritual stuff. And they'll bring them up and they'll have words with them and go over things and give them a chance to understand what was about to happen to them. This is their way of dealing with death. Okay. Nobody dies alone with the ET. Everybody's walked through it. There are always others with them. And when you're isolated in a jail like that, who's going to help you? So that if you're a contactee, they'll come for you and help walk through it. And they'll actually stay in contact until the moment you leave and then help you walk over. They're capable of doing that.
That's fascinating to think that they would do that. And I mean, and obviously nobody else sees them.
Right, exactly. That's the weird part about it.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting
they can
part
OBE,
to me,
just like we do. They can OBE as well. And they can cloak themselves from everything. They can even go as far as not be seen on radar at all. So it's not hard for them to stay secluded and away from your eyes to be seen. The ones over the cemeteries, I know what that is. They're energizing the ground looking for contactees by their implants. When you die, your implant goes silent, okay? And so they'll go looking for their people, the hybrids, and they'll energize the ground, which sends a signal to the implants, okay? And once it energizes, they know they've got the right one, and they'll pull them out. I'm curious about something, Preston. Have you ever had a reports of a graveyard reporting that the body is gone, but the grave was not opened, and they couldn't figure out how the hell that happened?
No, but I do have a case which I'll get to, which points towards that, because it's one of the best cases. I kind of want to save it for later in the show because it's so wild.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to me about your story, where you're, pulling up this guy on death row, is the ETs know that he's going to die.
Right. So does he.
And
yeah, when we pass away, you know that we all have to face this someday, all of us. And we're not exactly in our societies, not real. We celebrate birth by everybody's there and it's a party and blah 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 blah. But we don't do that for people who are passing. Families, very close families will be there, but it's very solemn and stuff like that. And there's a lot of tears. ET doesn't operate that way. It's a big deal, and they're capable of helping you over. To the other side.
In other words, easier for them because they can see the dead person right there standing next to them.
Yeah, well, that's what they're doing, and I would be curious to see how many hospitals have craft hanging out over them.
A bunch.
Yeah, see, things like that.
So there, well, speaking on going on this kind of tangent, there's a bunch of weird cases where someone will have a death in the family or something. And this is when the UFOs show up. But this case is so odd and spooky. This was on March 17, 1978 at Beersheba Springs in Tennessee. And this guy, Peter Thomas, 25 years old, was taking members of his religious sect, a little religious group, onto a vacation at Beersheba Springs, where they were thinking of buying some property. And before he went on the vacation, he had this dream that he was taken into a UFO, and they told him that there would be an accident, and in his dream he died. So he's nervous, obviously.
Yeah.
Next day, they rent a 12-foot truck because they thought this would be economical. And as they were going up, they saw a flying saucer, all of them. It was a big ball of fire that came in and darted across the sky and vanished. Now, this is not the weird part. What happened was this bus had an accident. It slid off the highway, tumbled 100 feet into the ravine, and killed 4 passengers and seriously injured the remaining 18 passengers.
Wow.
Turned out the driver was a little tipsy. He ended up being charged with murder for drunk driving.
Wow.
But Peter Thomas had told people about his dream, and then there was this UFO sighting, so they started blaming him for the accident.
Oh God!
Oh, no, that's not good. That's like calling him a witch. That's not good.
So that's just a weird, spooky case and I've got a couple of those. There was another case where these 5 or 10 kids were playing out in the field, and this humanoid comes up and it's starting walking towards them, coming out of a gully, under a road. it had the jumpsuit. It had all the features we see with humanoids. Walking strangely, the kids felt like they were moving in slow motion. So there's the Oz effect, and they all ended up running away. But the weird part was, it was 2 days earlier, a gentleman had a motorcycle accident and had died at that exact spot.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Janie's asking, what state was this story in again? The one you just talked about?
The
Tennessee.
bus one, Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee, Janie.
Beersheba Springs.
Wow. Yeah, that's wrong that they went after him for that, but it's almost like a sort of premonition.
Yeah, and we know that people who are contactees, their psychic abilities become sort of sparked or elevated or turned on, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's nobody came to help them out.
No.
Wow. That's crazy.
So yeah, lots of weirdly spooky cases. Like here's the one I found from Jim and Carl Lorenzen, and this one is so weird. This was in 1967, and the witness is an anonymous owner of a funeral home. She did not want her name used. And it all began when her son came running in and said that there was a flying saucer hovering over the funeral parlor. And she assumed, right? Okay, so she assumed her son was imagining and just didn't pay any attention to it until a few days later. A man came in to visit the grave of a deceased friend. He comes running inside and said that there is, quote, a disc-shaped metallic object hovering directly over the funeral parlor. So she ran outside to see. It was gone. But this is, again, not a one-off. This came twice over the funeral parlor.
Yeah. Yeah. So what, I mean, well, I've got, you can have to assume, like, if the deceased was there and was a contactee or hybrid, or
They like to collect their gear. They don't leave it to be found, you know?
yeah, especially through cremation, right?
Especially with cremation, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, my first thought was that they were retrieving genetic material, because you know that genetic material survives after death. And
for a certain amount of time. It's not the whole boat. Once the cells start to, you know, the mitochondrial DNA is the more prevalent one that survives the most. The other half of it goes very quickly after you pass away, unless they can get bone marrow from you. And just depends. But ET doesn't do that. So, I mean, they've had ample opportunity working with you your whole life. If you're a contactee, they already know your DNA. They don't have to collect it after you die. So,
yeah, that was kind of my theory. But one guy finally said, you know, maybe they're collecting implants. I hadn't even thought of that.
It would make sense, because you cremate somebody, you know, because I've known people who've owned funeral homes, even like, let's say with a pacemaker, which isn't going to be quite as sophisticated. And they remove them ahead of time, because they'll just explode under heat. So I don't know, you know, about the chips, etc. But I mean, it definitely would attract some attention after the fact, if anything. Lifespan of the grays, if you want to touch
I like
on
that question. Dolly?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Dolly.
from what I understand, they can live up to 3,000 years old.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. Very old. Very, very old. 3,000 years old.
Yeah.
And,
is that average?
Pretty much, from what I understand. I know that Mama's approaching 845 now. So, yeah.
Jeez, can you imagine?
Yeah.
100 years old and you're still an adolescent.
Yeah.
I love that. I think it's awesome. I want to be 145 and act like an adolescent. Oh.
Pay no attention to him. He's young. You know, he's just 300 years old.
Yeah. I wonder if they get crotchety when they get close to the 3,000 year mark.
I've seen a couple that I thought were that old, and they didn't do a lot of moving around or anything. They were just, you know, talking to people. They were sitting down, and you could tell they were weathered. You know, they were showing their age. So it's wild.
We got to give it to them at that age, that's for sure.
They keep growing, right? They can get really tall. If
the tall whites get really tall. Yeah, the grays do too. I've seen grays over 8 feet tall. Okay, never higher than that. But I've seen tall whites taller than that, like 10, 12 feet tall. I mean,
That's
monstrously
crazy.
tall. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
crazy. Wow. All right, Preston.
All right,
Next.
Give me another one. Yeah.
here's another really good case. This is another close encounter of the second kind, I guess you would call it, because it affects this time the witness, really, but also the environment to a certain extent. And this comes from J. Allen Hynek, who, of course, we all love and cherish as the father of modern ufology. He was part of Project Blue Book. He was the astronomical consultant. And after the Hillsdale College sightings defected and said, I'm done with Blue Book. These guys are a-holes. They're not telling the truth. And
Wow, whistleblower.
yeah, he went to the other side and said, that's it. Blue Book is a farce. I'm going to write my own book, and I'm going to become a UFO researcher and advocate. And he did a great job.
Yeah, that takes a lot. That takes a lot to switch sides like that.
Yeah, especially when, you're a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
So he was one of few scientists at that time. There was maybe five or 10, but he was definitely one of them. And this case, this is interesting. March 8, 1967, and this is in Leominster, Massachusetts. And this involves a young couple, a hairdresser and a painter, who went out for a drive to look at the newly fallen snow. It was 1 a.m., a clear night, and they're passing by this small cemetery outside of Leominster. And this is when they notice that the cemetery is completely shrouded in fog. Only the cemetery, nowhere else. So that's weird, right?
Yeah.
And as they're looking at it, like, that's weird, they see there's this glowing object hovering over the cemetery. So they're thinking, well, maybe it's a fire. Perhaps there must be a fire, and that's what the light is, and this is smoke. So they're getting closer, and this is when things got really strange. So he turned the car around to take a closer look, rolled the windows down, got out of his car and shut the door and pointed at the object. And this is when the automobile lights on his car, the radio, and the engine all went out. He felt what amounted to an electrical shock, which his whole body became numb and immobilized, and the arm he was pointing with went whack right against the hood of the car, and he couldn't move it.
Huh.
So I don't know what's going on there, Dolly. Maybe you have some theory?
Was he wearing a watch? A metal watch?
Doesn't say.
Magnetism is a funny thing. When it knocks out the power in your vehicle, it can magnetize the car. And if you have metal on it, can attract it. So that's probably why his arm flew out to the car.
I mean, it's possible. It didn't say.
Makes sense.
But he couldn't move a muscle. He said he could still hear. He could see.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you're in that field, it's an interdimensional field they've just built, and you're incorporated into it, and you freeze. It's really not a whole lot you can do, when you're in that state. On that side of it, they're inside and they're totally protected from it, but outside the craft, that's all wide open interdimensional space, and it'll freeze you solid in your tracks.
Yeah, it didn't say whether his wife froze or not, so I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But definitely it affected him, so he couldn't move. And this is when the lights in the radio came back on. The object started to rock back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. Just saying.
Why is that interesting, Dolly?
It's because
the lights in the radio
they
come
were
back
trying not
on.
to destroy him while they got the heck out of there. That's why they're taking it easy, and they were trying to maneuver not to pull him up with them, because sometimes that happens to people. They get lifted off the ground, and it could have hurt him. And they were trying to swim back and forth to let him loose, shake him loose a little bit. Yep.
Yeah.
Hopefully lands in a tree and
I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I have a case of a guy who was walking along a railroad track, so a UFO flew over him. It lifted him up and threw him to the ground.
Down. Yeah.
And another guy, a priest, he went running towards, a bunch of people were looking. I just found this case. I'm going to probably present it. He went running towards this UFO. He's a priest, right? Goes running towards the UFO. Other people are watching it. He gets lifted up and tossed 20 feet. So,
wow.
It's a thing. If you get that close to that much magnetism, it's going to pull you up into it. It's like being attracted to electricity. Like when you touch something electrical and it just grabs you toward it.
like
Same
lightning.
thing. Yeah, kind of like that. Only massive dose of it all at one time. and it's all around you at once, and it can just lift you right up.
Yeah,
You know?
two cases involving horses where that happened too. Horses.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So at any rate, the car lights and radio and engine go back on. The object makes a loud humming noise and darts off, and they drive away. They're like, we don't want to go back there again. We've never seen anything like this. They were thoroughly shooken up.
Oh, I know.
Gosh, yeah. Well, I can see that. I mean, I don't
We're
know.
not talking about this anymore. Yeah,
I know. I know that's. I mean, it's interesting to have an experience to start with, but when you have something that becomes physical like that, I mean, that's gonna stir stuff up.
Stays with you. Yeah, I guarantee you they had after effects too. You know, I'd be interested if you could still contact them to ask them, what was happening to you physically for the next month after that. Were you tired? How was your health? That kind of thing. To get any burns? That kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be interesting to find out.
Unfortunately, that probably won't happen because J.L. and Hynek is the only one who knows their names. This is what the brutal cover-up has done. People are too afraid to come forward. And it's ridiculous because so many people are having these kinds of experiences. For every case I find like this, I know there's 100 others. I know it because every time I put out a video on something, like this, people are like, oh yeah, that happened to me. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, but at least they're coming forward because you're going public with the stories.
Yeah.
Remember too, some of it I think is conditioning, like not just so much, like being fooled into, there's a weather balloon, don't talk or else. Like there's also conditioning of we don't talk about things like that, and it would stay within your family.
Yeah.
But if you went public with it, that's just, depending on the age, I don't think that would have been something that was overly common. More so now. And it's nice to see that people are finally coming forward. And then you get those deathbed confessions. Oh, that. Is that a horse?
That's our horse, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Look at that face. She's like, what are we talking about?
She's such a good dog.
Aw, good girl. He's like, okay, I've had my.
She's a lap dog. That's the problem.
It's usually the way. The Chihuahuas think they're Rottweilers, and the Great Danes think they're little Chihuahuas. They just want to have a sit down on your lap. So, all right. So next.
All right. This next case comes from Raymond Fowler. I love Raymond Fowler. He did the Betty Andreasen case, the Allagash 4 in Michigan. There's few investigators that are as objective and thorough as Raymond Fowler. He's one of the good guys. I adore the guy. I've got all his books. He's amazing. And he was really one of the first to notice this connection. So I have a quote from him here. He says, according to Fowler, 23% of the cases took place over rural fields, a portion of which were actually cemeteries. And he said, I had no idea then that cemeteries would figure in future UFO investigations. Because he ended up finding a number of them. So kudos to Raymond Fowler for picking up on this well before anyone else did. And he found this case in Haverhill, Massachusetts, October 6, 1964. This is well after midnight. And there are two witnesses, Robert Cousy and William Chase, Robert Soucy. And they see this domed disc hovering above the trees right next to a graveyard. So he puts his car in reverse, backs up so that they're right by the graveyard, and they can see this object about 150 feet away. That was your classic flying saucer. But here's the thing, it's hovering very low. And when people see a craft, it's usually quite a ways up there. The average sighting is of an anomalous light late at night with 4 witnesses. They see it for about 10 seconds. The graveyard sightings are, within 100 feet usually of these cemeteries. They're almost always solid objects. And So there's something going on here. This was another clear example of a graveyard being targeted. So
I
they
would like
stared at.
Mother, just for a second, okay? You realize that if people have implants, and it doesn't matter what year you died, okay? The government, I don't think, started paying attention to the fact that a lot of people have implants and there's more of them than you know. And that's technology that they would want. See what I'm saying? And ET started going back for them and collecting because they don't want the government to have them. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a lot of what that is recovering technology that they just don't want them to get their hands on.
Yeah, well, you reminded me of the time we interviewed Paul Stonehill in Russia, and he was talking about how there was a grave of a giant skeleton, and the government came and cut the hands off.
Yep.
And took the hands. And you're like, whoa, I think I know what's going on here. Yep.
Yeah.
Implant.
Yep. Yeah.
Huh. Well, I mean, let's face it, they've always worked against us, you know. I mean, just look at the giants. Smithsonian, one of the most well-respected establishments in, you know,
I've lost
archaeology.
respect for them, actually.
Right. Yes, exactly. Exactly. You know, that's what I mean. Like, people revered them as an institution, and you find out that they were hiding and destroying evidence. You know,
Yep.
it takes you off the path, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So
Yep.
you can imagine if they have information on crafts and extraterrestrials and hybrids, you'll never see the light of a day.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating and makes me so mad.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't follow a whole lot of the political stuff, but didn't Donald Trump call out the Smithsonian saying that they had, okay, they did. He did to I guess reveal this suppressed history. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He wants them to open the doors. He wants in there. Yep.
Wow.
Because there's stuff still in there that we can see. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the intelligence agencies that are basically the crooks behind all of this stuff.
Mhm.
And yeah, the folks.
I get a feeling the NASA files, you know, the moon tapes and all of that.
Mhm.
What if they're in the vaults of the Smithsonian? Just saying.
Yeah, I said
That
they
wouldn't
lost
surprise
them.
me.
You do that. Okay.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Preston. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all, Dolly. Not at all.
Okay.
All right, so in that Haverhill, Massachusetts case, the object just darted away. But here's another one, and I like this one because it has humanoids,
Mhm.
which are, you know, somewhat rare in terms of the graveyard cases, but they turn up, and that's significant. And this one occurred on October 9th, 1954 in France, Pornay-la-Chétive in France. And I know I'm pronouncing that right because I took enough French. So these 4 children were ranging in age from 5 to 16 years old and were roller skating by the cemetery. And this is when they saw a round luminous object about 9 or 3 meters in diameter, 10 feet. So, and they were all watching this thing. And this is when they all saw this short figure appear beneath it. It was dressed all in black appropriately, but had large eyes and what looked like hair on its face. Really strange.
Wow.
Now, I will
That's
say,
different. You don't hear about things like that often.
no, but it does come up. And, you know, October 1954, for those of you who know your UFO history, France was going through a very intense wave of sightings at this time for reasons probably connected to our developing anti-gravity around that time in that area.
Yeah.
At any rate, they saw this thing and it saw them. And so what does it do? It shines a, quote, blinding light at them, speaks in an unknown language, and scares the daylights out of them, and they run away, but turn around in time to see this object, which was basically not landed, but hovering right above the ground. Because, as Dolly says, they rarely land. They basically just hover right above the ground. People, you can call it a landing because that's essentially what it is.
Mhm.
But I guess the little humanoid went inside. They didn't see this, but they watched this object rise up and take off. So that's a humanoid case, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In graveyards. I'm telling you, these guys are, I don't know if they're grave diggers or what's going on here, grave robbers, but they're just collecting implants. That's the best theory, I think.
It seems to make the most sense. Yeah, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I mean, again, if you're a hybrid, some hybrids are not as advanced as others either. You'd be able to see the differences if you, if they got a hold of you, government got a hold of you, let's say, or, the medical field got a hold of you.
Yeah.
Right.
They've got a whole room, I bet, or a whole museum of implants that they've got.
Yeah.
We have some, for Pete's sake, Dr. Roger Lear, and what's the other guy, Daryl Sims?
Oh, he's got lots of them. Yeah. Yeah. And people just give them up. They just have them remove and give them up to people.
I would say the vast majority of contactees do have implants too.
There was a comment about that for you guys. Hold on. Here we are. Carrie says, am I hearing Preston and Dolly right that implants could be right in the bones?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're in places you wouldn't. One guy I talked to, I talked to his mother and kind of threw his mother to him. He had an implant right under his back molar, under the molar.
Oh,
between the mandible and the molar. Yeah, in the space between. Yeah.
Wow.
But they can be just about anywhere. In the skin behind the ears is not uncommon. In the jaw, the hands, the arms, the legs.
They're tiny. Yeah.
I don't generally hear them. Maybe you can correct me, Dolly, in the actual torso of a person.
Yes.
They are then. Yeah.
So
they don't usually do the torso unless they're confident that it's not going to be bothered by anything.
Right. Yeah. Because I don't hear that a lot, but I'm not worried about them. I think they've got good uses. I don't think they're for tracking so much. I think that they're more for monitoring people's health, mainly. But some people do feel like they're facilitating communication, or that the implant will go off for some reason if they're very emotional, or if the ETs are coming, or.
Well, what about by our governments or militaries?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're implanting people now too. Think about that. This is disturbing to me. They've worked out how to make brain implants. They have implants that are working on your nervous system. They're trying to help people walk. Those are implants. They implant you in the Army with the GPS. When you're going overseas, you're going on instead of wearing something in your helmet or on, they offer you it's like the the little teeny thing that they put in animals to scan it. That's they put them in humans now in the military. They give you that option.
Yeah. Well, I remember
voluntarily or involuntarily.
Voluntarily, yes.
Yeah.
And involuntarily,
dog tags. You can get separated from your dog tags, and this is a way to identify you absolutely and GPS you at the same time. So yeah.
Right. Wayne says, I thought that ET was far beyond, I guess, advanced, far beyond the need for a physical sort of implant.
There's a lot of people on this planet, and there's a lot of them. And when you're doing in science, we have to be very specific, right? We can't make mistakes. And this is a way for them to be absolutely positively sure that they're identifying the right person. Okay, you can be psychic about it, no problem. But there are those whose psychic ability makes that difficult for them. So they will implant you so that they know they're making exact contact with you. They have technology that is so advanced, it's not a big deal. They are implanted as well. They wear GPS, a type of GPS. So it's more like it's a light type of thing, and it has a frequency in it, that identifies each other.
Well, that would make sense. I mean, if you had a craft go down and they were coming in to retrieve you, they had a case like that in Brazil, wasn't it? Where the ship came back to try to retrieve their counterparts, and they were just taken already by military.
Yeah, they use different things, like when they're traveling, from planetary system to planetary system in a galaxy, they use frequency markers. It's the same thing, okay? And it's just a way of getting to you specifically. And when you have to be sure that this is the right person. You have to be sure it's a scientific endeavor on their part. You know, it's like your own medical attachment that monitors your body, makes sure you're okay, and things like that, and it just keeps up with you. And they can immediately take you out of a crowd and identify you specifically. So yeah, you get 50 people all hanging out together, and they're trying to grab one of you.
Pinging different things. Yeah. All right, Preston, next one.
Okay, I've got a bunch. Here's
All right.
another Canadian case. Interesting, Dolly. This is in Nova Scotia.
Mm,
Where
Shocker.
you're just there.
Yeah, we were just there. It was so cool seeing Shag Harbor.
It's a great place, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I could live there, and we almost did because our government shut down, and we weren't sure we were going to get back.
We weren't sure we were going to fly out. I swear to you, I'm not going to.
Oh,
My
no.
poor daughter, she's texting me, "You're in trouble." I'm like, "Why?"
We're stuck up in Canada
The
on an
government's
island.
still shut down. Unbelievable. Okay. At any rate, this one is in Nova Scotia and was investigated by Eugene Frison, the MUFON provincial director for Nova Scotia. And this involves a paper boy who decided to take a shortcut through the cemetery. There's no such thing as a shortcut, is there? and as he's inside the cemetery grounds, he notices that it's getting weirdly windy, and hears a strange kind of whining sound and a rush of heat. And this is when he sees on his right, very close to him, just a few feet away, a large object about 9 feet tall, 5 feet wide, hovering, and whizzes right by him and gets out of view. Now, he thinks he surprised this thing that was basically in the cemetery doing what it's doing. Because, and this is where it turns into a close encounter of the second kind, because immediately following the incident, and you were talking about this, Dolly, he suffered raised blisters across his chest and face. They stung, they burned, disappeared after a few days.
It's like
It sort of happened up in Falcon Lake,
burn. Yeah.
didn't it? Falcon Lake in Canada. I cannot remember the gentleman's name.
Mikulik.
Yeah, it was just loaded with burns. Yeah, so I'm surprised we don't see more of that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised actually, because I don't think ETs are trying to burn people. It's people who get too close to one.
Right. It's a shot. It's a situation, like you said, it was a surprise. He showed up suddenly out of nowhere. They were too close to him, and they knew they needed to get the heck away from him immediately. And but it wasn't fast enough. He got some burn from it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
there's a UFO case, isn't there, of a guy out in the woods with his buddies doing, tree work and stuff, and he accidentally touched the craft? You know who I'm talking about?
I'm thinking you're thinking of the one Michelle just mentioned, Stephen McCalloch.
And Falcon Lake.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, it was a shock,
Yeah, that was a pretty big deal for Canada. Like it's an older case, much like Shag Harbor.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of them out there, but you do have those ones like Rendlesham, this is that one that periodically just sticks out, and it's the one that everybody thinks of because it was it was made public, which was shocking to me, like back then, that it would have been made so public.
Yep.
So next.
All right. I like this one because the witnesses are police officers. And to me, they make a little bit more credible witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And we have so many police officers who are witnesses because they're out there at night. They're the watchers. They're the ones who are taking care of things. And it's such a shame that most of them don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Because people have lost their jobs. Police officers have been passed over for promotion, have been run out of the force because of their sightings. And it's ridiculous because that's their job. To check out and make sure there's nothing unusual going on. but these
Yeah.
guys were lucky.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. This was November 4, 1957, and this is in Elmwood, Illinois. Patrolman Joseph Lukasek and Clifford Shaw and a fireman, Robert Volt. They were all in the squad car investigating a store which had an open window, which shouldn't have been at that time. It's 3:12 a.m. And this is when one of them sees this really bright egg-shaped object, bright red-orange, they said, hovering 250 feet in the air directly over the cemetery, Elmwood Cemetery. I think I do have a picture of it, actually. Let me see if I can find it just for, well, I'll find it. Elmwood Cemetery. Talk amongst yourselves.
Dad's brother.
Here
My
it
father's
is.
brother lived in Elmwood.
The silence is
Oh
dead.
my God. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I research all these places. I try to fact check each case, right? So this is the cemetery where this incident occurred, and it's hovering 250 feet directly over the cemetery. So what do? They're police officers. They take their spotlight and shine it on the object. And they radio Officer Daniel De Giovanni at the Elmwood police station and say that they're observing, quote, an unknown object. So you can imagine, as soon as they turn on their spotlight, guess what happens?
Poof.
It goes out.
Right.
Their headlights go out, the spotlight dims and flickers, and this object kind of moved interdimensionally. They said it almost looked like it was folding into itself, is how they put it. Puffed out, shot 200 feet up in the air, and started to move off. And they chased it in their car, but hit a dead end, and they watched this thing kind of move interdimensionally, they said, and disappear, kind of in thin air. Now, here's what's really cool about this, because they have each other as witnesses, so thank God for that. But back at the Elmwood Park Police Station, Officer De Giovanni, who took their call, goes running outside just in time to see this object shoot across town and disappear. So
that'd be different.
So
That'd be different. That's a big cemetery, and it's wide open. When you think a lot of them are above the tree line, there's so many of these cemeteries just have a lot of trees. They're not all wide open like this.
Yeah, it's a good case, and there's so many of them. That's what's weird. Here's one, 1966. Rob McKinnon, who operates a rest area, sees this object, a bright beam of light, hanging absolutely motionless in the air, maybe 100 feet up. So he calls his family, and they all observe this light, and it descends right over the nearby burial ground. And this is when he said that the what do you call them, little huts that contain the bodies?
Yeah.
Started being lit up.
Wow.
He says, and I quote, "We definitely had a feeling it was interested in this place. There definitely was something strange happening there over the cemetery that night."
Like a mausoleum?
Yeah.
Mausoleum. Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, well, that's again, for me, this is interesting information, because I never would have thought this was a real thing. As you go through these stories, I'm just like these weirdo little beings that they are. But when you mention implants, it makes sense.
And there's so many of them, they start to get repetitive. But I think it's important to note them, because it really drives this home that this is something that's going on.
Yes.
And here's one that I didn't find, but credit to Scott Corrales for finding this one. 1989, Nelson Oliveira, the local gravedigger for the, and I'm going to mispronounce this, but I'll do my best, Araraquara Cemetery outside of Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Brazil, that's a hotbed.
He was interviewed by some really well-known Brazilian ufologists, and said he saw a classic metallic disc, which he said was shaped kind of like an upside-down hat. It's funny, people always use something that they're familiar with to describe these craft.
Right.
The Romans called them flying shields. So that's close encounter of the first kind. Simple sighting.
Yes.
There it is, over the cemetery again.
Do they ever see them, land and do anything, or do people, ever come up on them, being landed and maybe sort of, witness what it is that they're there for?
Well, wait till I get to the best
Okay,
case.
we're getting to the save the best for last, Preston. Okay, I'm with you. I'm not trying to jump the gun
Don't
on
rush
purpose. It's just, gotta ask something. It's my show. I gotta come up with something.
Because some of the cases are far more dramatic than others.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Some are just going to be simple. I think a lot of people are catching a tail end or maybe the beginning, and they interrupt, and they're like, "All right, we'll have to come back later."
Well, here's a really quick question then. For Dolly. I mean, for us, when we bury our dead or we cremate them and we have like the celebration of life, could it be like a curiosity on their part? Like, how do they deal with the death and the physical after the passing?
It begins as death is occurring, and they all gather with the person, and because they're highly evolved and they understand how to OBE or remote view. I mean, it's like they can jump out anytime they want. When a person passes away, they're all there waiting for this person to transition out of their body, and they welcome them into the other side. Okay, sometimes they'll even escort. They'll go with them and make sure that everything's copacetic about that. I've heard a couple instances when they're coming down to a cemetery, and they'll see people who are hanging out after they've passed, like ghosts, like as we would understand ghosts, and literally freak out when they see them because they can see them too. Okay. And I've heard a couple times of them trying to hitch a ride out, like they feel trapped and they can't go and they want to go. And sometimes I've heard a couple times where they've actually participated to help get them to the other side, escort them over, so I think the curiosity here is that sometimes, because when we're flying around and we don't have anything specific to do, and we're trying to leave or we're going and there's nothing else to do and it's not late enough for us to leave yet, we look for things, we just fly around and do stuff. And if you're flying over to the cemetery, you see 20 people standing there looking up at you and bloody well they're passed. That's a curious thing to look at. And they see them, they know they're there. And and they'll find out.
Way.
It's identifying what the problem is. Some people are like, they don't know they're gone. Some people are just determined to stay with the family and they're not going anywhere. Some people are just, what's the word, too lazy to leave, waiting for something else to come. I mean, it's just a whole bunch of reasons why we don't leave this plane of existence when it's time. And so they do see that. I know that. They talk about it.
God, I can just imagine. You die, you're hanging out, you're like, I'm earthbound. What's that up there? Great. I'm
that's a crap. I can talk about that now. So, but how does ET handle death? Like, do you think that they're curious about maybe our ways of dealing with the deceased, like the physical? Because the physical is no big deal to them, right?
They think that embalming is the grossest thing ever on the planet. Okay, they don't understand. I mean,
I'm with them on that. Yeah.
Mummifying somebody is way different than what we do now. Okay. They believe that, how do I put this? This is a body that has energy in it after you pass away that belongs to you. And some people want to be cremated because you want to release that energy. Okay. If you understand why that works that way. And so they cremate right away. I mean, they just don't mess around. Cremation. Okay. They're way evolved. Nobody gets buried ET anymore. Everybody's cremated. I think that's why they're looking for contactees that want to be cremated, identify themselves to them and say, please come get me. If they embalm me, get me the heck out. Release me. Because I think it takes a little while for that energy to release from your body if it's embalmed. Okay. It almost like holds onto it. And that's sad to them. That's really sad. They don't find that fascinating at all. They think it's tragedy,
Yeah. I'm just curious if there was this curiosity, like, what are they doing? Like,
oh, they know.
Throwing them in a hole. Yeah.
Watching
I
us.
think they know more about us than we know about ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because there are people who've had a near-death experience and they don't go see relatives on the other side. They're seeing ETs. It's very few cases, but it does happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I did interview a guy, Don Anderson, who was taken on board, and they showed him his deceased father. He came on board too. I know a case in, Puerto Rico or somewhere around there where two ladies, the mother, her husband, and the girl's father appeared. And there was this huge reunion, and they were all very, very happy. They both recalled it, so this is not just a single witness case. They saw this deceased person on board a UFO.
Yeah.
Whitley Strieber talks about this, and I kind of didn't believe at the time. I'm like, I'd never had a case like this.
That's crazy.
No. But
it raises a lot of more questions, doesn't it? About some of the conditioning that we have grown up with, the belief system when you're seeing your deceased family members on a craft. I'm saying that's
one of the most poignant moments of my entire life was I was in my late 20s, and we brought a physician up. She was 104 years old and she was dying. She had no family alive, nowhere. She lived her life as a male because to become a doctor back then meant she had to parade around as a guy to get in school. And so there was really nobody to wish her off or anything. And they brought her up and let her stay with them through the process of her leaving. And I got to be part of it. And it was poignant because she was loved by them, genuinely loved. And she showed it. She knew. And when she passed, it was the greatest moment of her life. And I think she wanted to stay with them out of, as like a ghost on board. They're like, no, your existence is waiting for you. You need to, And so they walked her over. And I mean, they physically left their bodies and went with her over. Okay. Wow. And that blew me off the planet. I didn't realize you could do that. And since then, in my lifetime with my family, my own family, I helped my father walk over and I helped my mother walk over. Okay. I had communicated with both of them through the whole process. And it was poignant. And I wish that everybody could have that experience, everybody. And I think that ET would teach it to you if you let them,
Break free of the fear.
Right, exactly.
There's a whole other world waiting for you, literally out of this world, but it's waiting.
You're not done. You just turning a page. That's all.
Yeah.
I don't know why that reminded me of another case, but it did. Where
go crazy.
People were driving a bloodmobile, and a UFO comes down and chases them down this highway for a long time, scared the living daylights out of them. So
a Red Cross bloodmobile?
Yeah.
Wow. When did that happen?
I'd have to look that up. It was.
Oh my goodness.
It was.
Wow. I wonder why. Now I'm curious. Wow. I wonder why that one's. Wow.
I covered it in one of my videos. One of the ones where I'm like, these super weird cases. Because that one I'm like, whoa. I think that was from John Keel, and it became pretty well known actually.
Wow.
Pretty well publicized case, but kind of fits in here, the spooky.
It does, the obscure.
All right, and here's a case which I have no details on, but it's interesting because the witness is Rob Zombie.
I love that.
Oh, that's funny.
Famous rock star was leaving a Halloween party and saw a UFO hovering over the cemetery next to his grade school. And he told this to Jerry Miller, a journalist, and all he said was, that was pretty freaky.
The fact that it was Rob Zombie that witnessed it is pretty freaky.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny.
That's awesome. That's great.
All right, here's a more recent case, because I want to get to the good one. I'm only halfway through, not even.
Got lots of time. Go crazy, yeah.
So June 16, 2011. It's important because that's fairly recent.
Yes.
These cases are from all over the world. Seems to be a lot in Illinois. Here's another one. And I don't know how to pronounce this. Chillicothe? Anyway, a lady's driving along Route 29 when her radio gets filled with static, and she pulls over to the side of the road because she sees two very large orange lights hovering over the local cemeteries. And all these other cars start pulling over to watch them. So she pulls over, quickly calls her brother and says, go to the cemetery and look at the UFOs. So she's watching them, and they're staying just above the cemetery, not moving. She said they looked kind of teardrop or cone shaped. I'm not sure how those can be reconciled, but I think people have a hard time determining the shape of objects. And it's all a matter of perspective.
Well, you gotta remember, it's like a cuttlefish. It'll show you what it wants you to see. So that doesn't surprise me. The differences, you know. So
right. So after a few moments, they started to dim and move away. So she followed them in her car, and this is when a helicopter appeared and started chasing these lights. And a few minutes later, her brother, who's about 6 blocks away, called and said that he just saw one of them. So this was reported to MUFON, and a good multiple witness sighting, which I'm sure we haven't heard most of the witnesses who had this. And I want to know who's in that, helicopter, because they obviously saw it too. I'm sure we'll never hear their testimony.
No, I'm sure there's a lot of testimonies that are just hidden. So,
right. So I'm going to skip a few of these because it's getting There's so many. That's the problem. Here's one in Girona, Spain. It's just your typical UFO hovering over a cemetery. 4 people watched it, and it stayed there for a long time and then took off.
Yeah.
But here's an interesting one because this one's in England, and this drives the point home that this is worldwide. UFOs are ubiquitous. I've said this before. Name any town, I'll find a UFO there. Please don't give me a town.
All of a sudden they start flooding in.
That's a series I'm working on. UFOs over your hometown. And yeah, I'm batting 100%, but gosh, the research is very tedious. At any rate, if you have a town, I'll look it up for you. Okay.
Here they come. Go ahead.
July 15th, 1996. This is in Cheshire, England. A young man described by the police as, quote, a sensible sort of lad and genuine was walking by a cemetery when he saw this object hovering again at treetop level over the cemetery. And he said the object was making a high-pitched noise. And I like this description, like cats wailing.
Oh, that's unusual and not pleasant.
No, but sometimes UFOs will make noise if they want to grab your attention. So I've seen that because generally they're perfectly silent. Yeah. Or maybe it's a reverse engineered because our own do make noise. But at any rate, this thing begins to fire beams of light at the railway line right next to the cemetery. So he runs away and the object follows him.
Oh boy.
He gets home, tells his dad, and so they both return to the scene, and the UFOs are gone. But here they find 4 railway sleepers still smoldering, and one had a 4-inch hole burned through it. So they contacted the police, and the police verified this, and actually did an investigation, and there was no sign of accelerants, meaning gasoline or anything like this.
Yeah, that's insane. Just saying. God, it would be in England too.
Yep.
Wow.
So you mean 4 railway cars with a hole burned through one of them?
Yeah.
Wow.
Sleepers. Yeah, I guess I don't know what a sleeper is. So
yeah, they're long distance trains.
It's a long rail.
Yeah.
It's long train. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ha. That would be unnerving. Big hole in there. Yeah, wonderful. All right.
Very strange, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Now I think I've gotten to the case I really wanted to talk about, which is in West Virginia. And here it is. the Dean Memorial Cemetery.
Mhm.
Now, this is probably the most complex and really the chilling and just most spooky of all the cases I found.
Yeah.
This is in an area called Nefkin Hill, and it's surrounded by cemeteries, including the Nefkin Cemetery, the Kalbau Cemetery, and the Dean Memorial Cemetery.
Mhm.
This is a very large cemetery, and these sightings began in the early 1960s and
Hmm.
have been ongoing for a long time and ramped up over time.
Wow.
So,
Wonder why.
well, it's interesting because the Jones family is this is a small town,
Mm.
right? So the Jones family is one of many families who've seen UFOs in this area. In April of 1968, two of them were driving by the graveyard when they saw what they described as a bright ball of light hovering overhead, 100 feet wide. And
Wow.
as they drove by, this object comes straight for them and goes over their vehicle.
Huh.
And they now see that, no, this is not just a ball of light. This was kind of the plasma field surrounding it. It was a metallic object, and it was making a buzzing noise as it moved over them. And it scared them. So they drive home, and it follows them home, hovering over their car. They run into the house, and this object is still hovering over their house. Everyone in the house sees it. They wake up all the relatives and watch this object as it starts darting from place to place and then darts off.
Mhm. Huh.
Now,
Wow. It's interesting as to the continuation of the events that keep happening. Like, what is it about this area that keeps them coming back?
I think it's a cemetery because this is where all the activity is happening, and we'll see why actually. As
Okay. Right on.
these are family cemeteries, and one of them are the Callos. They have
Right.
their own family cemetery there.
Yeah.
And one of the ladies in this family, her name is Amy, says, and I quote, "We'd all see lights during the late 1960s and early 70s going back and forth around the church area. I never wanted to see them, but I did." And they said they were not planes, they were not helicopters. And when they get close to them, they could hear these making sort of a high-pitched whining or buzzing noise.
Huh.
And usually were white, but not always. Her sister Vicky also remembers seeing them and said that she saw a silvery white elliptical shaped object. And she always remembers being very afraid of these things because they were not airplanes, not helicopters. Nobody could identify them. Another member of the family, Clark, says that he saw one in mid-July 1970
Mm.
hovering right over the neighboring cemetery, the Nefkin Hill Cemetery. And boom, as soon as he's looking at it, it comes right over his house, and he's looking up at the bottom of this object, which you can now see is kind of more cigar-shaped than really anything.
Mhm.
It turns on all its lights, 15 to bright lights shining down, and boom, goes straight back over the cemetery again and hovers there. So this is just going on and on.
Yeah.
The mailman, the postman, Dixon Ritter, lives 1 mile north of the graveyard, has an excellent view of the area, and has seen these over and over again. Hovering over the church, he says one that comes down is about 5 feet wide and would go over this cemetery, the Dean Memorial Cemetery, right over this area, over and over again. So this continued for years, right? Reverend Harley DeLure and other residents decided that they were going to go UFO hunting in the cemetery. So
Wow.
people are doing CE5s.
In the cemetery?
Might check out a cemetery.
Yeah. Wow. It is interesting that these are family cemeteries. The first one, the 100-foot jobbers,
Yeah, and I'm guessing these guys are contactees because they're all seeing UFOs.
Yes.
And it's following them. It's coming over their house.
Yeah.
They didn't talk about it in terms of seeing humanoids, but I bet, if I could get them.
Small town, right?
Right.
Again, old families.
So these guys, the Reverend and two other residents, decide to go UFO hunting and go about a quarter mile away and waited. And after 2 hours, a UFO showed up They said it looked like a big turtle with lights on it, and it wasn't more than 6 feet off the ground and was shining lights down onto the graveyards. And as they watched, this object hovered low over each of the graveyards, shining powerful beams of light as if searching for something. And this is when they noticed something. The object stopped and targeted a particular gravesite. So they knew who this gravesite was. And the only thing unusual about this gravesite was that it was very recent, only 1 day old. And the funeral had been held earlier that day.
And they were there that night.
So that's, I think, exactly what Dolly's saying is going on here.
Yeah.
You know, he wanted to exhume the body.
Yeah. Wow.
The Reverend did.
Well, see, that would be interesting to see. But I mean, would you see anything with the technology?
No.
Like, really, if they were just taking it in
they would
because
just
they're
take it right
tiny,
out.
right? Yeah. Yeah. So
But they never did exhume the body. But he says, and again, I quote, "It seemed like every time there was a new grave, within the next couple of nights, people would see lights up there." So I counted more than a dozen cases in this one area.
Yeah, they were taking implants away from the government getting.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes the most sense. And again, small town, how many small towns where everybody sees them.
That's right. Well, everybody's probably a contactee too. It's that small.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Easy cheese mom. Yeah.
Yeah. It was Scott Corrales. He's the one who said that, why are they doing this? He leads us to consider that these alien scientists are gleaning important biological information from the deceased, or perhaps they are removing implants left in the bodies of longtime abductees.
So that right there it is.
So, yeah.
That would make sense. Yeah. Yeah. John says maybe there was a study done there.
It would be, I would really wish that there was more attention paid to this sort of thing. There wasn't. According to one researcher, there were some funeral homes that had some bodies missing. I looked him up. He's not a particularly reliable researcher, so I'm taking that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
So
but
I don't know.
Again, it's a curiosity if it's a thing, right?
Yep.
I mean, to completely go missing.
It's very, very odd. Some of these cases are just beyond strange.
And,
yeah.
Well, keep sharing the weirdness, Preston. Share up the weirdness.
What else you got?
Well, here's a case which, that was the main one that I really wanted to share. But here's one that is right along these lines. This one is so weird. And it kind of is this theme of, ETs showing an interest in death or showing up around that time. And this was on December 12, 1967. There was this huge wave of sightings going on in Ithaca. This is in New York. There was like 800 sightings over a period of just a few months in late 1967. So this lady, a beautician and mother of two, Rita Malley, is 24 years old and driving from North Lansing to her home in South Lansing. This is in New York. And her son Dana is in kindergarten. He's in the back seat. So they're on Route 34, and her son is talking and talking and talking. And this is when they come around a corner, and she sees this brilliant red glow, really bright. And she's been speeding a little bit, so she's thinking it's a police car, but doesn't see any police car. And then suddenly this object appears on her left, right about at telephone pole height. And she says this is about 60 feet in diameter, round, a little dome-like thing on top. It tilted. She said it was so bright, you really couldn't even look at it. And this is when she noticed that her son, Dana, who had been jibber-jabbering, was completely quiet. He's looking out at this thing. His eyes are bugging out of his head. And she asked him, "Are you all right?" And he was unresponsive. He was in a complete trance. So that frightened her.
Yeah.
And so this object is about 100 feet away, 120 feet away, and it strikes her with a beam of light. White beam of light comes up from underneath, and she says appeared to take control of her car, basically brought her to a stop.
Mhm.
So this is obviously causing her to become hysterical with fear. She's like, I can't run away from this thing. She's shaking. She doesn't know what to do. Her eyes are hurting from the brightness of the light. There's no other cars on the road. Her engine goes out. Her headlights go out. She did see a house about a mile away, but there was no way. She's trying to get her car started. It will not move. And she said this thing actually lifted her car off the road and set it onto the shoulder of the road, pulled it about 10 feet off the road. And she can now hear it making a humming sound. She said it was very much like bees humming. And that rang a bell for me, because this is a description so many witnesses say, there was a humming sound. Like what? It sounded like a beehive.
Yeah. I've actually heard that from people. I'd be curious to see what would cause a paralysis with the child.
I think probably he was just stunned, or maybe they were putting, sometimes when people are having an encounter,
Just
other people
fear.
are unresponsive. You cannot
Right.
wake them up. I
Yeah.
don't know if Dolly, maybe you could shed some light on that, but
They're in direct contact with you, and it distracts you to the point that you stop moving. You just solidly not moving because you're in full conscious contact with them, and they have 100% of your attention instantly. And they can direct you. They can, get you to calm down or be. It's a way to make contact safe for everybody, And it's not hypnosis or anything like that. They're just in full, mental contact with you. And people will just go, and not move. They don't know what to do. It's like, oh my God, where's, you're trapped in your own mind listening to this.
It's like a safety thing too, I would imagine, right?
Yes.
Like, for the hysterical ones. Yeah.
it must be something more than that. Because, like, my sister Valerie had an encounter where this UFO is right outside her window, and it stops right in the crack of the curtains. She's like, that was weird, because the curtains were practically closed, and it stopped right there, and it's going up and down like this. And she turns to her boyfriend. Her baby is like 5 days old. Okay, I know what's going on here. Because they come around right after you've had a child, or right when you're 9 months pregnant. At any rate, she turns to her boyfriend, the father of the baby. She cannot wake him up. He will not wake up. And I've got case after case of this where people are, you can't wake them up. So there's got to be some sort of hypnotic.
No. They're just in full contact with you. You can't do anything except attend to what they're thinking into you. And it takes more than one ET to do it. In other words, you've got a contingent on a craft, and you've got 3 people. You've got 3 ETs on each person, one on each person, and they're directing you to do what they want you to do, and you absolutely obey it. It's weird. It's like in a situation where you're trying to panic and freak out, and you got that fright or flight thing. Fright will freeze you. You can't run. And if they're in full contact with you, that's hold you down. You can't move. And it's totally psychological on our parts that we obey that.
Because sometimes there'll be 3 or 4 people in the car, and just one gets taken, and the other 2 are just sitting in their seats. They're just waiting.
Where's Bob?
I watched my own cousin on a beach do that. That 4th of July in 2014. I see 4 of them incoming. I don't know who they are. I'm watching them carefully, and come and go. 15 minutes, and I turned to say something to her, and she's literally like this. And I'm thinking, hello, are you in there? She's not moving, and she's not doing nothing. She's just, And then after they left, she came back too. We went to we're staying, it was like the 4th of July. We had to get out of the zoo. When you're there 365, it's crazy, okay? One day we wanted to go somewhere. We went back to the hotel, went to bed, and 2 hours later, she got up and said, "Pack, we're going home right now." And she sounded crazy to me. And we packed, we got in the car, she drove all the way home. She went to bed and didn't remember a bloody thing the next day, and thought I was out of my mind. And I was like, well, okay, well, she took action really well there. You know, I know the fact that she couldn't have emotionally handled it at all. She was never going to be one to deal with that at all. And I think that's what happened. She went fight or flight, kept her under control, and she woke up and still panicking and decided to run at that point. And her brain just wouldn't let her go there, you know?
All right, that makes sense.
Humans are
I've got so many cases of this. One lady, she was taken, she was brought back. She had been healed, but she ran around trying to wake up her 3 children and her husband. None would wake up. So it took her 20 minutes, and then they woke up and they're like, all groggy and like, I don't know.
That would wig me out as a parent. Even though I've had like good experiences, I think it would still wig me out as a parent when it's your kids like that.
Well, we have to answer this one.
Yeah.
Polly. Hi, Polly. We love you. Thank you for your opinion on Atlas.
3-eye Atlas. Yeah.
My opinion, I'll go
There
first.
we go.
Is that it is an unusual comet. We haven't had a lot of incoming bodies like this before, so it doesn't surprise me that they're still a little confused about it. But the main giveaway for me that this is not ET is because if they wanted to come here, they would be here instantly. They don't travel interstellar distances by plodding along through interstellar space like that. They are in their, solar system or wherever they are, and they do what Dolly calls light gating. And I've got many other examples of this from other contactees, and they come, if we're right over our planet and moving, that would be a different thing. No, I don't buy any. There's so much misinformation on this thing. I found a video of Michio Kaku that was completely AI.
Oh boy!
And saying all kinds of stuff about this.
Well, there's remote viewers all over the world are like, there's people in it.
Mark D'Antonio said something at Shag Harbor because I asked him point blank about Avi, and he said that he was friends with him. They had a lot of conversations. They were very close, and he said this is not what he's saying. He said I don't know what people are saying, but that's not him talking. And then Preston, shortly after we came back, saw the AI version, and I thought, this might
not be a standard comment. What did you say it was? It's more of a planetary shard or something.
There's lots of things in our universe, okay, especially in our galaxy. When a planet is destroyed, if the sun doesn't go supernova and absorb everything, okay, when it explains that, planets can hit each other. We have rogue planets in space everywhere, okay, and if 2 of them collide, that debris can go very, very fast from that collision. As a matter of fact, faster than a regular comet or an asteroid. And that's what's incoming on us is debris. And the fact that it has many different signatures and it's showing maybe the possibility of life or some, industrial thing is because it was probably a planet that got nailed, that had that advancement on it, and we don't know anything. I mean, they can make theories about everything, but until they have absolute proof, you just have to go, well, that's a nice theory, but it hasn't hit us. It didn't hit Mars. It's not coming back, and it's passing, and it's right in front of our sun right now. So we really see it lit up, and that's what it is. And you can use all the spectrometers or the new ones, they got the newfangled ones out where they see a little bit better of the scale, and all they're seeing is compounds and things that are unusual that we haven't seen. But how long have we been looking at comets in the sky? How long have we had the technology to see this?
Well, Nick says it emits radio signals just as recently as yesterday. What kind of
everything emits radio signals? That's BS. Our moon emits radio signals. Your sun emits radio signals.
If it was playing I Love Lucy or something, that would be
no. That's BS. That's misinformation and disinformation. It's not true. See, this is where I go crazy when I hear stuff like that. It's like, please,
essentially, in your opinion,
those of us who are intelligent enough.
Is this a blue beam thing? Are they running with it?
No, not at all.
Use it as one. They might take advantage of it to say.
That's what I was saying. Is I just taking the situation and running with it?
And they're using it as an excuse to scare the doo-doo out of you. Okay, and don't let them. It's not a real thing. Plenty of astronomers and astrophysicists are all saying the same thing. This is an unusual comet, and it's really cool, and there's great things about it, but it has nothing to do with us being invaded by ET or being watched or whatever, and it's not dangerous to us.
Okay.
You know,
So being accompanied by at least 7 other objects, non-government.
we have stuff coming in from the Kuiper Belt that has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, we got
Okay, nothing.
Okay.
While we're going through our pole change, you know, electromagnetically, we're going through our current sheet, and it's knocking things from the Kuiper Belt at us, and we're about to start seeing a lot of rogue stuff coming in from our own system at us, because that's part of what happens during a pole change, because of the magnetism and what's happening. So yeah, they're conflating things together to make you believe certain things. Don't go there; it's not true. Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Go ahead, Preston. Got
All
another
right.
story? Yeah.
This is a really interesting. Rita Malley, she sees a UFO. Her son kind of in a trance. It shines a beam of light on her, pulls her car off the road, stops it, and so she's freaking out. What the heck is going on? Why is it doing this? Well, apparently it was doing it for a reason, and I have never heard a story quite like this. I've heard similar ones, but so she can hear this thing humming like a hive of bees, and she says these voices come out of this thing. Now her windows were rolled up tight, the wind's blowing, so this is not, you know, normal by any means, but she hears what sounds like a chorus of voices. That also kind of hit a chord for me, because I've heard this sort of thing. People will hear messages from ETs, and it's like multiple voices speaking at once. And she says it sounded audible to her. And all of these voices were talking at the same time. And she said it almost felt like it was being translated into English, because the speech was a little bit broken up. But this wasn't telepathic, she says. It was external, coming from this thing. And it sounded almost like a loudspeaker. Couldn't tell whether this was male or female, but it gave her this message. Speaking in chorus, it said these words: Paul Donalds, Moravia, killed in Messina in a tractor trailer owned by Joe Ettinger, Moravia. Moravia, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But Rita recognizes this name, Paul Donalds. I looked this up. This is a real honest-to-God case. Paul Donalds is this friend of her sister's. Her friend is Marion Donalds. So Paul Donalds is her brother. And the voices continued and then said, your son will not remember the time from stopping the car to the time you left the highway. That was the message. And at this point, the UFO beams her car and moves it back onto the road. Her car lights come back on, and the car starts moving down the highway, still under the control of this object, until they reach a straightaway. And this is when the object takes off and Rita regains control of her car. And her son starts jibber-jabbering again. And she turns to him and said, did you see what Mama saw? And he said, no. So she goes home. She tells her husband she's got a headache. She's got neck pain. Her husband's absolutely shocked by this story. But it's the next afternoon. She gets a call from her sister who said, did you hear that Paul Donalds got killed in Messina? So she was, of course, shocked and asked her sister what happened. And it was just as these voices from the UFO had told her. He had been killed in a tractor trailer owned by Joel Ettinger. I found the records of this accident. I found the actual, time of death and the whole thing. It did happen. 4 p.m., December 12. It was 3 hours before her sighting, about 75 miles away. Paul Donalds was 29 years old. So
that's insane. That's wild. That is a wild story.
I have a theory about it. I think that she's a contactee, and they wanted to give her a message that was absolutely undeniable. Because contactees have a way of explaining away, ignoring, denying, not thinking about it, forgetting, anything to not have to deal with this.
Yeah,
but they gave her a message.
They're trying to get her to wake up. In other words, full on, there's no denying it. When it's in your face like that, you can't walk away from it anymore. It's real, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it happens sometimes for some people. They're being a little bit obtuse about it and they don't want to, and they fight it. And then they'll pull you in to give you absolute proof that this is really happening. And then you can't turn away from it. It's proof, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
What did she do after that? I mean, you heard the story. How did she conduct her life after that? I'm curious. Do you know?
She ended up contacting investigators and received all kinds of publicity, and that really was not what she wanted. So she refused to talk to anybody about it because her story got into Fate magazine and Popular Science magazine.
Wow.
And she just didn't want to talk about it. But apparently she did have a sighting after that. And that's all we really know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's such a weird case.
That's definitely peculiar case, but God, that one stands out. You know, that's extraordinary. That's extraordinary.
Yeah. And like I said, there's a number of cases out there where the UFO will show up right before or after somebody dies. And I now ask contactees this, or whenever anyone has a close encounter, I'm like, anything going on at that time in your life?
Yeah.
People say, well, yeah, I just got divorced, or I just had a terrible breakup with my, girlfriend, was one guy what told me. People are diagnosed with an illness, perhaps, and a UFO will show up. I had my onboard experience on my birthday, which is, and I've had a few other birthday connections with some of my experiences.
That's cool, though.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love that.
It was my mom's death in 1984 that kind of sent me on a path towards, UFO research. So there's a weird connection there to these things. And every now and then I'll get a case that speaks to that. I think one of the weirdest I got was I was actually investigating ghosts. So, and there were these ladies who lived in a haunted apartment. It was so cool because this was in Van Nuys. I could go down there, and I did. But this had two witnesses. They were both, aspiring actors who didn't have enough money because as an actor, making almost nothing.
Starving actors, yeah.
So they rented a one-room, really cheap apartment. Like, wow, this apartment is so cheap.
Yeah,
we can afford it. And so they soon found out why it was so cheap.
Yeah,
it was a retirement building, and people were dying all the time. They said there was an ambulance every week pulling somebody out.
Oh,
God. So no sooner do they move in when their neighbor is banging on the wall every night. Knock, knock, knock. Knock, knock, knock. They're thinking he's throwing a tennis ball. That's what he's doing. Finally, it just got so bad that they complained to the manager. And the manager said, well, he moved out. He moved out about a week or two ago because he said you guys were banging on the wall.
Wow.
That apartment is empty now. I'm like, well, it's still banging.
Yeah. Wow.
I ended up talking to the building manager and to the neighbor. So I've got 4 witnesses to this ghost story because from that point on, this was a demonic haunting, what it ended up being, because it ramped up so quickly. They started having cold spots. Objects were disappearing and moving. They were in their bedroom, and all of a sudden, banging pots and pans were in the kitchen. They went running in there. Nothing's wrong. That happened several times. Somebody kept moving the bike around. They would turn on this is so weird. They turned on the water, which would normally, goes down to the sink. It would spray out sideways. And I had another guy who said the same darn thing. They said it was like someone was holding their hand up against the faucet. And it just kept getting more and more. They started having nightmares of horrific events, and they would come true the next day. Murder or a robbery or a homicide or some, particularly one of them. She says, it's like something was implanting this into my brain. the lady across the hall said she kept this moth would follow her around. She's like, I don't know if this means anything.
Moth. Yeah.
But foul odors. They brought someone over to set up their stereo. Good friend. And he starts setting up the stereo and looks over to the corner and turns white. You know, he's a black guy too.
Yeah.
And we're like, what's wrong? He's like, nothing. And he starts setting up the stereo as fast as he can. And says, I'm leaving now. I'm like, wait, we're going to treat you to dinner. And he's like, no, I'm leaving. Bye. and they called him up, like, what the heck? You know, what's wrong with you? And they said, you have lemurs in your apartment. And they're like, what's lemurs? And he said, I only see them when there's bad ghosts around. He said, they're big-eyed little...
They're cute little lemurs.
Creatures.
Yeah.
These were not normal lemurs, Michelle.
They're not the cute kind of lemurs?
No.
Damn, I'm so naive.
Did they call somebody to like come exercise the house or smudge it or something?
Yep, they did. Okay. It didn't work. They called they called over some spiritual people, and that didn't work. They were told you should put salt, salt all the perimeter of the house. They poured like 2 gallons of salt around. Still went. They invited their sister over. She sat on the couch and woke up in the middle of the night screaming. And they went running in this. She says, someone's in this house. Someone just, touched her body. And so they're sleeping. They started to see these apparitions. I'm getting to the point here. Honest, the UFO connection.
Take your time. Take your time. Yeah.
They start seeing these apparitions running across the hallway in front of their open door. They share a room, right? They're actually sharing a big queen bed because they don't have any money.
Yeah.
And they said it would just race by, and every now and then it would stop, and you could see it was this black, almost stick figure looking thing. And then these apparitions started getting bolder and would come and stop and enter into the room and rush at them. So this was freaking them out. They went out to Cafe 50s one evening. I went there too to verify the details that they said, because they said their tables started to shake. These are tables that are fixed to the wall. You cannot really move them. And they complained to the waitress, who's looking at them like they're nuts. And they're like, well, let's just get out of here. And so they paid their bill, and they said, there's a gumball machine, a little, on a stand, a single pedestal gumball machine. I took pictures of it. It's there.
Yeah.
And they said it started shaking like back and forth by itself. And the cashier turned bone white and just looked at it and looked at them. And they're like playing dumb. They knew what was going on. It had followed them, whatever this was.
Oh my God.
And
that's
so they dashed home. So this is just ramping up and up. And then one day these apparitions come and attack one of the girls and entered into her body and pressed her down to the bed. And she couldn't move, and she was choking. And her friend sees this. Now she's, praying to God at this point, saying Hail Marys. They're not particularly religious, but at this point they're trying whatever they can. And so the other girl goes and tries to pull her off the bed, cannot. She is stuck to the bed. And you can see she's depressed into the bed. And they're both praying and crying and praying and crying. And after a few minutes, whatever it was lifted. And I talked to the one who, had this ghost attack her and move into her. And she says, yeah, it possessed me. It hurt. I couldn't breathe. And I could see it. And it was this old woman looking thing with black holes for eyes, stringy, long, dirty hair, really dirty teeth, and was basically trying to possess her, is what she said.
Wow.
Please tell me they left.
They left that night.
Okay.
That morning, rather.
Did they get followed?
Well, yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
They found an apartment which was more expensive. They're like, we're not moving back there. It's funny. I talked to the apartment manager, and she's like, "Oh yeah, my tenants keep complaining." she saw a full-on apparition. There was mezuzahs on the doors to the basement, and all the basement ground was turned up mysteriously, like the soil was turned over.
Yeah.
There's something was going on with that building. I still know where it is. I've got pictures. I went there.
Yeah.
I didn't go into the haunted apartment.
Is there anything like land related? I mean, it's so hard in apartments because you don't know what your neighbor is into, or if they know people who are into things, or if they have attachments or land related.
Buildings are famously haunted, cheap apartments, because people go there and they do drugs, or they do awful things.
Yeah.
All kinds
So
of
they're
awful
just
things,
wide
right?
open to that stuff. Yeah. Like bullseye on their back sort of thing, right?
So they found another more expensive apartment, which they couldn't afford, but who cares at this point?
Yeah.
And little things happened and they just ignored them. Right thing to do. When a cup would move, don't pay attention to it. Absolutely just, and it slowly tapered off, but it was 2 weeks after they moved that they were in their apartment, and suddenly they hear this really loud buzzing noise. It's just getting louder and louder, and they're looking at each other like, oh God, what is this? Is this an earthquake? No, it's a buzzing noise. So they rush out onto their balcony, and there's a UFO.
Oh God. Great.
And it is a V shape. And it's got lights on it. It's not a triangle, it's a V shape, kind of. VU shape. Lights all along it. It's hovering right over their balcony. And it's, how do I put this? It's tilted at an angle, so it's showing its bottom to them. And they watched this thing in absolute astonishment. And for just a few minutes, when it smoothly moved up and darts off, and they said, I don't know what to think of this, Preston, but whatever it was somehow connected to what we just went through.
There's a lot
Let me
of
ask you a question. Did the spooky stuff stop after they saw the ship?
Yep.
That's why the ship, their contactees, they knew they were being haunted by something bad, and they rid them of it. That's why.
All right. Yep. Though I will say that they ended up moving, getting separate apartments.
Oh no.
The other girl took a job as a phone sex operator.
Yeah.
The haunting started again for her, and she was thrown to the ground and pinned there. And after that, she stopped whatever she was doing that was causing this. Because I think she was doing some stuff that was, opening her up to this sort of thing.
Well, there's so many similarities. Like everything is connected.
Yeah.
In all the fields, everything is connected with that. So, I mean, you look at, for example, somebody had mentioned, the hag. The hag, and it holds you down, sleep paralysis. And aside from a lot of the sleep paralysis, logical, scientific reasons, there are people who report having extraterrestrial experiences where they feel sleep paralysis, like they can't move while everything is happening, but they're witnessing everything going on around them. Like, there's definitely some connections. So that is a very fascinating story.
Yeah, well, here's another graveyard case.
Yes.
This was in the summer of 1964, and this comes from Walter Webb, a really good researcher. He wrote The Year of the Humanoids.
Yeah.
So he's a good researcher, and this one occurred in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and the researcher got a tip that a UFO had allegedly landed at a cemetery in Lawrence, Massachusetts. And would he come and investigate it? So he agreed. And they interviewed a group of children who said that they had seen this object land in the cemetery. So they go in the cemetery and they're staking it out, right? And they're going through there and they're looking at all the graveyards. And then they find out a few days later that there had been a grave robbery in this same cemetery. And the police busted them because they thought the police thought that they were the ones who were robbing the graves.
Oh, and it's
It just
sad.
gets
It always
weirder, right?
Yeah.
Just gets weirder. Oh my
Did they take the
God.
whole casket or the body or what? I mean, how did that happen?
It doesn't say, just a grave robbery.
Wow.
That's
So apparently
insane.
a body was taken, and I don't know. People do take bodies because
You do.
they're
It's an age-old problem, hence the terms, like what grave robbers, the term "saved by the bell," the graveyard shift. I mean, a lot of these old Victorian terms come because of grave robbers, and it's how they knew that people were not always dead when they went into the
Yeah.
ground. It's the grave
And you
robbers
drink
that
out of a
saw the
lead
claw
flask,
marks and
and you
oh
go
yeah,
into a coma, and they need the bell inside the casket so they can
exactly.
they're dead ringers. Yeah.
Saved by the bell. But if you didn't have somebody on the graveyard shift to hear the bell, then
Yeah.
you're SOL.
Yeah,
That,
pretty much. You're going to die
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane how that goes. All right, got time for one more story? Want to do one more?
I basically gave you all of the cemetery stories I got.
Okay, so that's good.
but-
No, this is good. That means we made it to the end, and you got to tell all your stories.
But I will say there was one case I investigated which had all of it at once
Yeah.
in terms of the paranormal, because this guy said he had a UFO land in his backyard in Canyon Country,
Mm.
and the next night a Bigfoot showed up, roaring. He could read its mind. It could read his mind. That was the first time I heard of Bigfoot being telepathic. But
Yeah.
it turns out, yeah, that does turn out. But the interesting part is, he said this horrible haunting broke out right after that. And this was a full-on haunting, with doors opening and closing and footsteps and cold spots. And it went on for a couple of months and then petered out when a UFO showed up a second time. And he said this was not a normal-looking UFO. He said, don't know how to describe this, but it looked flat. It looked almost two-dimensional.
Mm.
It glowed red, and it had this weird shape. He drew it for me. It was right near the house, so it was clearly connected to all of this. But I don't know. These were the weird cases that started me, like, I need to figure out what the connection is to all of this.
Yeah.
And I figured it out, I think, because a lot of contactees will have contact, and they start seeing shadow people. They'll start having mediumistic abilities.
Mm.
We talked to Irina Scott. She had
Yeah.
a full-on UFO encounter, and all of a sudden things are moving around. This is you. This is our bioelectric fields causing stuff to move around, or now you have a whole new awareness. You can see dead people.
Mm-hmm.
You already had that ability, but encounter somehow, Dolly could probably explain it better than I could, ramped it up or ignited it.
Well,
Yeah.
it's like, you get a kid and he's learning how to walk, so mom and dad hold him by the hands and they help walk him, okay? And they get used to walking. And it's mom and dad encourage him to use the ability to walk. That's what happens. Psychic ability can ramp just because you're encouraged to use it, or you're put into the situation to use it. Your brain goes, oh, I know what that is, and it keeps going. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's igniting your ability. It's teaching you to be psychic,
Yeah. You follow your instincts and rely on those. Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, talk about Lake Gate. Who's your next guest on Monday night?
Ooh, we got a good one.
He's from Space Weather Observers, and he is the one that is talking about the pole shifting and all of that. And I found it interesting. A month ago, he finally came out and admitted that there's probably ET, which was a big one for him, because he went, I don't want to talk about it. And he admitted it's real. And so I don't think I conned him. He's a very gracious person. Okay. So he's coming on Monday, and we put it up on the thing, go to his playlist and, watch it. Cause he's going to talk over your head unless you pre-record your brain to understand what he's going to say. And
he's a scientist. He's very knowledgeable. And it's so interesting because Dolly's been talking about the CMEs, coronal mass ejections, and how gravity is connected to magnetism and all the things, earthquakes and stuff like this. And he is absolutely confirming a lot of what she learned from the ETs. So I'm super excited about it. And what other contactees also.
Right.
Yeah. I think that sounds very exciting. So you're going to get some real techie stuff coming in and answering some questions. Yeah, I could tell Dolly's very excited.
I am.
So what else do you guys have coming up? Anything
Just
to promote?
working on the light gate. I'm going to be on Gaia. I have to go to Colorado. I haven't gone there yet, and but I'm doing that. And Preston is working on symmetry, and he's got 2 of the books right behind it to come. So I'm hoping maybe by January, all 3 will be hitting boom, boom, boom. You know?
Wow.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to write another book on ghosts, one on supernatural events connected to survival, supernatural events that save people's lives.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would be good. That's a whole other,
Out of
that's a
body.
little bit out of the wheelhouse for you, isn't it? Like you're kind of branching out a little bit.
A little bit. I've always done, every now and then I do paranormal stuff.
Yeah.
But there's so much to the UFO stuff that it's just, I love it. It's so interesting. And that's my mission. I think I agreed, had a meeting with the ETs. Well, I did. Let's face it.
Yeah.
To bring the truth out about what I would call the extraterrestrial presence on our planet.
Yeah.
I don't like the word phenomenon because it's just they're events. That's what they are. It's experiences people are having. And call it a phenomena, I think, puts a layer of mystery on it that it doesn't deserve. It really bothers me that to find a UFO book, you have to go to the New Age section.
That's
It should be
true.
in the science section.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Or
true.
the astronomy section.
Maybe it's just because it's just so new for most people. Maybe we need to look at it in the spin of the folks who have either never had interest, never heard. I mean, I would say they never heard of it. Some people only hear about it because of television shows, or they've never actually listened to something, like credible shows, like, or read one of your books, for example, or just listen to stories of survivors, coming forward from, let's say, military, because that's a thing. And then realizing that, wait a minute, ET is a thing, and don't mix the two, because there's still a lot of propaganda out there with things that people are going through, and maybe they're just mixing up what's coming from. So this is new and confusing, I think, for a lot of people. So why it's so very important that the facts get put out there, because there's just so much confusion and fear.
Deliberate, I think.
Yes, and fear.
Yep.
Right? There's so much fear mongering, just like on many, many different levels. This is just one of them. But for people who have interest, it's nice that there are now, options. But what would they know if they're just all of a sudden in the New Age section? For them, it's kind of like, this is the little green guys from outer space. They don't look at the bigger picture, right? So that there's so much more to it, and that they've just been here for so long, and they predates humanity. So many.
Exactly.
So they should be in the history section.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%.
Yes. Well, guys, thank you again. It was so much fun. I love the stories, Preston. I always love the stories, and I love Dolly's input on so much of it, because it does add a little bit to it. Why are they hanging out in cemeteries? Well, now we have different reasons as to why they might just be there, still on a mission or still helping. And I love it. I love it.
In fact, we do have a story in Symmetry too that Dolly didn't mention tonight. I was hoping you might.
Yeah.
But
No, that'd be a surprise.
All right.
Oh, we're not going to put it out there.
Not yet, no.
Okay.
But it's a good one, and it relates directly to this about ETs visiting a cemetery and why.
Yeah.
Very poignant, very touching.
I love it. I love it. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward, of course, to anything that you write. So you guys, the next Symmetry book is just going to be mind-blowing. I have no doubt about that. So for those of you who haven't gotten the first book, get the first book. You got to get the first book to be able to get and understand.
Make more sense that way.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody in chat room, both from Preston's YouTube, our YouTube, all our network YouTubes, and Roku and Rumble and X. Thank you guys all for tuning in. We appreciate you all so much. And tomorrow night is another October bonus open discussion exploring the age-old obsession with spirit communication, looking outside the realm of normal for answers. So that should be pretty exciting. I like it. Anyway, and of course, Wayne Mallows will be joining me as well. And, next week, whole other lineup, but we'll talk about that tomorrow night, guys. So thank you all. Big thank you to Folgers Coffee, Justin Snicker. Big thank you to Steve McGinnis. You have been listening to The Outer Realm with myself, Michelle DeRoche, and my dear friends, Preston Dennett, Dolly Safran, here on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from New Orleans. Thank you all again, and good night.
Bye. Thank you, guys.